Microsoft Copilot isn't cheap, and as we'll see in a bit, Copilot in Excel actually might not be for everyone or even ready for the masses, at least for now. But Microsoft is heavily investing in Copilot, and it will eventually become more useful and likely an essential skill to demonstrate when applying for most jobs. So, if you're looking to get ahead of the curve and learn how Copilot works in Microsoft Excel, this tutorial is for you. Prepare to level up, and let's get right into it. First, to access Copilot, you'll either need to add it to your Microsoft 365 subscription if you're a business, or for individuals, you'll need to purchase Copilot Pro as part of your family or personal plan. Copilot is available both on the online and desktop versions of Microsoft Excel. Quick tip, if you don't see the Copilot icon available in Excel for desktop, simply click Excel, then Update License. Another important note is that files you want to use with Copilot must be stored online either on OneDrive or SharePoint. Okay, now let's dive into how to use Copilot in Excel with a series of real-world use cases. For this tutorial, I'll be using this sales dataset from Kaggle. A key point when using Copilot in Excel is that it only works with data in a table. So we'll need to convert our dataset into Excel's table format. If you're not familiar with creating a table, it's pretty easy. Simply select your desired data, then click Insert, then Table. And there we have it. Our dataset is now in Excel's table format. You may be wondering why creating a table is a requirement for Copilot to work in Excel. Well, tables in Excel make managing and analyzing a group of related data easier. So as you can see in the sales data here, we can now easily sort and filter our data. For example, either by date or by country. Once your data is in a table format, you can then head back to the Home tab and click the Copilot icon to launch it. At the top of the Copilot pane are helper prompts you can click to get a better understanding of how Copilot works. Below that are suggested prompts that are oftentimes based on your data. And the text box allows you to ask Copilot questions about your data or make requests such as multiplying data in two columns. You can also click the dictionary icon to see example prompts if you're feeling stuck or unfamiliar with the capabilities available. So create is generally for operations that involve extracting data from columns or combining them. Understand is for extracting insights from your data. Edit is typically for sorting, filtering, and conditional formatting type of operations. And the Ask option allows you to ask Copilot for general assistance. I'll be diving into these features much more in depth while we go through the various use cases for Copilot in Excel. As a quick example of Copilot's capabilities, let's select Edit, Highlight, and let's ask it to highlight the 10 most profitable products. Copilot then takes a few seconds to process our request and lets us know that it applied a yellow fill color and a black font color to the top 10 items in the columns Product and Profit. And as we can see scrolling through our document, Copilot has highlighted certain cells in yellow. However, it did say that it was going to highlight both the product and profit columns, but it seems it's only highlighting values in the profit column. Now, for the next 3 sections, I'm going to demonstrate several Copilot features by going through the typical activities someone would carry out when working in a spreadsheet to analyze their data. Since I'm using sales data, we can imagine these would be the sort of questions a sales manager would have. Let's start with querying our data to get a general and better understanding of it. We'll ask Copilot to highlight the highest revenue values to easily see which products are bringing in the big bucks. This, of course, is very similar to the last prompt we'd given it, but in this case, it made the following changes by applying a green fill color and a black font color to the top 10% of values in the revenue column, which we can see here. And I'd say this turned out to be a much better execution of our prompt as compared to the last one. Next, let's get a quick statistical insight by asking Copilot what the median profit is. And there we have it. Our median profit is $87. Now, this spreadsheet has about 50,000 rows, and I do find that sometimes Copilot takes a bit longer than it would have to simply have typed out the median formula. So your mileage may vary depending on the size of the dataset. Okay, next, let's find out what the least selling products in the United States are. And then Copilot goes on to give us a list of the least selling products. You will notice for this operation, it actually generated a table which we could add to the sheet. I will skip that step for now as we'll be looking at it in the next section. But for now, let's really put Copilot to test and let's ask Copilot if it can show us the year-over-year sales based on age and gender. This is typically an operation you'd use a pivot table for. And as we can see, Copilot did try generate a pivot table in the background, but it still could not give us an answer. The weird thing is I did ask this exact same question on this exact same data set before recording this, and it did give me an answer the first time. But we'll soldier on. Next, let's try and generate some charts in Excel using Copilot. Since we're a sales manager looking to generate insights about our target market, let's ask Copilot to generate a chart showing yearly revenue for each age group. And pretty impressively, Copilot manages to create a pivot chart showing the yearly revenue for each age group, which includes adults, young adults, youth, and seniors. We can then simply click Add to Sheet to have Copilot add our chart to the sheet. And on the left, we have a formatted pivot table we can still make changes to, and on the right is our pivot chart. That is pretty impressive. Now, let's give Copilot a more challenging prompt and see how it fares. We'll ask it to create a histogram comparing age group and average profit. It created a clustered column chart showing the average profit for each age group. I do wish there was a way to simply click the generated chart and expand it before adding it to your sheet, but for now it is added to a separate new sheet. And as we can see from this chart, young adults followed by adults are generally their core profit drivers, with seniors having the lowest average profit. Pretty interesting stuff. Now let's dive into some revenue insights and ask it to generate a chart comparing revenue across geographies. And it handled this one pretty well again by creating a clustered bar chart showing the total revenue by country, sorted by revenue in descending order. The chart includes the US, Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, France, and Canada. Okay, next, let's see how good it is at grouping dates. We'll ask it to generate a line chart comparing quarterly revenue and profit. And just like that, it creates a line chart showing the total revenue and total profit by year and quarter of date. The chart includes data from Q1 to Q4. So we'll add it to a spreadsheet to get a better look. And there we have it. Overall, looks like this company's revenue and profits are on the rise after a difficult prior year. Overall, when it comes to generating charts with Copilot, if it understands your prompt, it really does a great job. However, there are times where it just simply does not process your prompt and you do have to get a bit creative in how you reword it. At the same time, some of these things you could simply create a pivot table and generate the chart yourself quicker than it takes to troubleshoot Copilot. However, for novice Excel users, these features do make sense. But for anyone with a little bit of experience creating pivot tables, sometimes it does seem it is much faster not to use Copilot. Okay, now let's really put Copilot's data analysis chops to the test. We'll ask it to rank the best performing product category. After a few seconds, it gives us an answer, and this one is actually more impressive than it seems on the surface. First of all, my prompt was pretty basic and ambiguous by asking it to rank the best performing product category. But best performing based on what? Is it order quantity, unit price, profit, revenue? I did not specify that. But Copilot intelligently assumed that I wanted my answer based on total profit, which makes the most business sense most of the time. So it inferred this all in the background and then provided to give me an answer that lets me know that the best performing product category is bikes, followed by accessories and clothing in terms of profit. And we can also verify that information by the pivot table and the pivot chart it created. Pretty cool. I do wish though that Copilot would ask clarifying questions. For example, instead of assuming that I wanted the profit number, Copilot could have simply asked a clarifying question. Next, let's go a layer deeper by asking it what the best-selling products in the bike product category are. And once again, it provides us a decent answer with, of course, an optional chart, which would, yes, create another sheet. But for this business, we can then quickly see from our Copilot prompt that the Mountain 200 bikes are their best performers. Okay, let's get a better understanding of our global insights and ask it which product is the most profitable in each country. Interestingly enough, it seems to have struggled with this question, so let me try tweak my prompt and see if that helps. Okay, so it seems for this question, Copilot has struggled, and one would have to manually create a pivot table to figure this one out. Overall, Copilot does seem to have handled most of our questions decently well, though it seems it struggles with more analytical type prompts. I do find that ChatGPT offers much more actionable insights when performing tasks related to data analysis, which is interesting since ChatGPT's models are also what power Copilot behind the scenes. Either way, to learn more about data analysis in ChatGPT, feel free to check out the video link down below. Overall, Copilot in Excel has some pretty handy features, and I would recommend it mainly for quick and basic analysis, generating basic charts, and basic data cleaning tasks. And, of course, using it to generate formulas that help with transforming your data by, say, combining two columns. However, there are still some kinks to work out for power users of Excel. So for example, new sheets every time you generate a chart or insight can get tedious. So while it pays to try stay organized, Microsoft should really think this user experience through. Additionally, from experimenting with different spreadsheet sizes, seems Copilot really begins to struggle once you go past 50,000 rows, at least for now, and I'd assume that will improve over time. Now, to be fair, Copilot for Excel is still in preview, but I'm not sure if it's currently worth the hefty price tag, unless if you also happen to get great utility from the other Copilot power tools such as Designer and Copilot for Word. From personal use, I regularly encounter weird bugs even for some straightforward operations and questions, though sometimes using the online version of Excel seems to be a touch more reliable. Sometimes, that is. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Copilot in Excel and whether you find it useful in your day-to-day. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next one.